A college education has long been seen as the surest ticket to the middle class. President Obama used precisely those words 3 years ago when promoting a series of initiatives aimed at reducing the cost of going to college to make it more accessible for more Americans. But is the dream of a college education really working out for most American students? According to a new report by the Manhattan Institute, the answer is an emphatic no. According to the report titled How the Other Half Learns, less than 1 in 5 American students manage to travel smoothly from a high school diploma to a college degree to a career. The report concludes that most students are not well served by the current high school to college pipeline and calls for a radical rethinking of its priorities. This segment is part of our Chasing the Dream initiative on poverty and opportunity in America. And joining us now is the author of that report, Oren Cass, a senior fellow at the Manhattan Institute. Oren, welcome to the program.
Thank you for having me.
So, Oren, first of all, what did your report look at and what did you find?
Well, we looked at the data on what happens to students at each stage of the pipeline as they move through school. And at each stage, it actually looks good. Most students graduate high school. Most of those students go to college. Most college students graduate. But when you actually step back and look at the whole picture, what you find is that by the end, the vast majority have fallen by the wayside. And so even though we have this system that's really exclusively designed to prepare students for college and push them through, really that's not serving most students. And it's especially failing the students who need the most help and who really we should be working hardest to support if we want to help them get on their feet and start a life.
And it's not just them. It's at 80%. If you include every aspect of that pipeline, from high school graduation to career, it's 80%. So what is the answer? So what is the answer? What is the alternative?
Well, the answer is to recognize that we're not going to succeed in designing a system where everyone goes to college. That's not the reality of what students are interested in and what their aptitudes are. And so if we actually want to meet students where they are and serve them well and prepare them, we need to design a system for the paths that they're actually on. And so that means having high schools that, yes, prepare kids for college if that's the direction they're headed, but spend just as much time and effort preparing other kids to move right into the workforce and to develop the skills they need to do jobs that they can do without a college degree.
No, but that assumes that kids know which of these two paths they should go on. When I was reading your report, I was thinking of Malcolm X. He wanted to be a lawyer, but his counselor said, no, you're not a lawyer. You're going to be a carpenter. How do we prevent, if this happens, that people are pushed in one direction because of where they are right there or because of the class or color, et cetera?
Well, I think that's exactly the right concern to raise. And there are a few things we can do. One is we can make sure that it's the student's decision and the family's decision. So the school can give advice, but at the end of the day, we want to make sure families are making choices for their kids. A second thing we can do is make sure that there are on-ramps and off-ramps in both directions. So just because you think you're headed down maybe a vocational track, that doesn't mean you can never switch. And the last thing I think it's really important to emphasize, though, is to recognize that we have to get out of this mindset that somehow being on a college track that's where the winners are. That's the ticket to success in the middle class. And if that's not the track you're on, then you're somehow a failure. For people who are well prepared and develop good skills in high schools, there are plenty of jobs for people with high school degrees that pay a lot better than a lot of jobs for people with college degrees. So we have to treat these as equal tracks that meet the needs of students who might want to be on them and not as one track for winners. And if you're not on that track, then you're a failure.
I wonder if you could quickly define for us what that vocational track looks like, because those of us of a certain age think about, shop when we think of vocational education. What are you talking about?
Yeah, it's important to recognize that most of the rest of the developed world, certainly in Europe, does this. Most students are on what we would call a vocational track, and it's not shop. It's intensive technical training alongside classroom training, but that emphasizes not, necessarily the advanced math or English language skills that are supposed to prepare you for college, but instead emphasizes actual practical workplace skills. So whatever type of track you're on, actually the top vocational track right now is healthcare. It's learning how to do those sort of middle skill diagnostic related tasks in our healthcare system. So whether you're doing that, whether you're doing something in advanced manufacturing, It's combining classroom learning and then also getting people into the workforce sooner so that by the time you're 17 or 18, you have some of your time in your classroom, but also some of the time with an employer learning on the job.
So as your report points out, a truly functioning vocational track is going to be expensive. How do you pay for it?
Well, the truth is it's expensive, but it's a lot cheaper than college. One of the crazy things that we do is we say, if you're going to college, we throw billions and billions of dollars. The federal government spends about $70 billion a year subsidizing college. States spend another $80 billion a year. By contrast, the federal government spends about $1 billion a year on vocational tracks. And so, yes, it's expensive to provide good vocational education to people, but if we recognize that it's an alternative to college, they certainly deserve just as much support, if not more, as what we provide to the college track. And so, frankly, the answer is to move some of that money to say, look, folks who are going to college, we wish them the best. We want to support them in doing that, but they're on a path toward higher earnings, and they should be actually funding more of that themselves, even if it means they have to pay it back later in life. We're going to take more of the money and not put it just to that college track, but actually put it to saying that the people who aren't headed to college deserve at least as much support. And I would say more support because, especially in today's economy, that's where we're falling behind. That's not where we're not serving people well.
So, Oren, this is truly a radical shift in the educational system. So who is on board with this? What forces, what factors, and who do you think will most oppose it?
Well, the reality is a lot of people are on board with it rhetorically. I mean, I think we hear from politicians left and right at this point wanting to do more of this kind of education, wanting to do more apprenticeships. One thing I like to point out is Donald Trump talked about more of this in his State of the Union, and then the Democratic response was actually delivered from a vocational school. So this is something I think everyone is committed to in principle. The problem is going from the principles to actually realizing what it would take, and a little bit to your point, realizing that some people are going to have to give something up. So the people on the other side of this are the folks who like the existing system most. Certainly the higher education lobby is very happy with the current arrangement and would resist this kind of shift. Certainly some folks in teachers' unions would have issue with it because you'd be talking about fewer traditional teachers, less classroom time, and more investment in alternative types of education. But at the end of the day, it's going to be a cultural question for our country. People say vocational education is great, but it's always for someone else's kids. And what we have to realize is that those someone else's kids are most kids, and they're probably, in some cases, your kids too. And if we want to be serving everybody well, we really have to shift that obligation and say, what will it take for the non-college pathway not to be something for other kids, but something that you're proud to have your own kids on too?
All right. Well, Oren, we'll have to end it there. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.